Hey, what's up? It's your boy Bobby Sapphire. This video today is a former Patreon exclusive video that my teammate Justin made for Sabine acolytes, players of the Green Sabine deck that we've been working on ever since, I don't know, well before the set came out. Anyway, this week is all about showing you the kind of exclusive content we do for our subscribers. In case you ever wondered what that was, this is another example of that. So let's check it out.
Good morning, everyone, KTOD subscribers. It's Justin with a next step on the train Sabine update. So now what? We've seen um, the green version, the command Sabine, evolve over the last few weeks, and we've got some problems to talk about. But before we get to those, let's talk about the success that we had this past weekend with this evolved list. So super proud of everyone for their contributions, and a little bit proud of myself too for the evolutions we made and had such success with it. So three in the top cut from the KTOD Discord using this exact list. The Akbar evolution was fantastic. Sort of figuring out that we needed a little bit more Dodana in the main for the mirror, and just really having this really clean list. It was great seeing some of the recap videos and people saying, "Oh, this list again, this list again, this again," and then we also saw it win multiple 1Ks. So the Discord really paying off. So this was the evolution that we hit. I don't think we need to talk about it too much, but it was really empowering to get messages from people saying, "Hey, I played the list that you put on the Discord and it crushed," or "Wow, this is crushed my event and I'm in the top cut," or "I only lost to the mirror," and just all the fabulous evolution and Akbar being insane. All that being said, we now have some problems we need to figure out. We've got some real struggles ahead of us. So, in looking at the future in the terms of next week, we have some new enemies that we have to figure out. One is that the mirror is pretty known now how to play it correctly, and also the technology is coming out. So now people are all understanding Rebel Assault is just insane in the mirror. So you're not going to face any decks with like two copies anymore. Everyone's going to have three. And then people are getting those pieces of technology like Akbar and more Dodanas in the main, and they're understanding like the levels and the layering that you need to do to win the mirror on resource 5 in one of the first actions. So we need to figure out what to do there. The mirrors always existed, but it felt like with sort of understanding that you're the one that has three Rebel Assaults, you're the one with Dodana, you're the one with Akbar, you're the one who understands how to get a value early ECL to gain tempo, you're gonna win the mirror. Well, now a lot of people understand that, so we need to figure that out more and gain a few margins. But then there's also a much more sinister menace on the horizon, and that is Bobby Sapphire's Cunning Boba Fett. It is an abysmal matchup, and given the popularity of Bobby and how well he did, and him winning a tournament, really dominating, um, we're going to have to evolve to figure out if we can win it sometimes. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out lists that and cards that are effective against it, and even with those maximized, almost like pre-boarded for cunning Sabine list that I came up with, it was still very rough, very rough matches. The 30-point base, cunning, Gamma guards, so much bounce. It's just really difficult to face it. So these are the two boogeymen. I also think the evolutions of control, I think, are actually okay for us. I think in general, control is a matchup that we're not like scared of. You can certainly lose it, but we've got an aggressive plan to get underneath it, and really sort of put enough pressure on that the evolutions to maybe Boba control, or was Vader, now it's Boba, maybe it's back to Vigilance Iden. Those matchups are not always easy, but I think we know what that is, right? We know how we're going to beat it. We know what we need to do. Where cutting is a little bit trickier. Cutting Boba is a little trickier. The other matchup to just talk about too, would be the Han decks, Green Han, Blue Han. They could be a little bit trickier. I didn't specifically include them because I think the angle to beat those decks is to just put a lot of pressure on early, not wait for the best ECL, not be like, oh, Steadfast Battalion kills Han, so I have to wait for it. Just get some value early if you can, um, and then take it from there. So that's my take on sort of what we need to face going forward. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out a sort of evolved list for this weekend, and this is my first hack at it. So this is sort of the attempt at improving margins. This is more of a fair list. It's very similar in structure to the list from last weekend. So you've got one more Akbar in the main, and you've got Ozeb in the main, which is something uh, John Tata talked about last week in lead up for Richmond. He actually had this, and I convinced him to play the three steadfast battalions. There's no bright hope in the main, understanding that the mirror is more predicated on the ground lane and just getting value there. So this is pretty standard. You can see in the sideboard, and we'll talk about it a little bit in the next slide, is there's 3 copies of Mercenary Company. So that's really trying to figure out a way to beat Cunning Boba. Mercenary Company is an attempt there. I will say my games where I'm beating Cunning Boba, I'm usually getting a really good Akbar. It's not necessarily on turn 3, but oftentimes it's killing a Greedo early or getting like sort of the finishing blow on one of the big units on resource 5 or maybe even later. So Akbar has been key to that. I don't think we can go to 3 copies, but um, we'll see what happens. So this is just sort of a marginal list. You know, you're hoping to improve your matchup very slimly, and you're going to have to play pretty tight. So I wish I had more of an innovative list for the weekend saying, hey, here's how you win the Sabine Mirror 90% of the time. Here's how you beat Cunning Boba 70% of the time. I don't think it's there for a fair list. Um, this list is my anti-cunning list that still beats cunning less than 50% of the time. You can see, so the structure here is that I'm hoping to have win the ground game. Um, so no copies of Steadfast Battalion. So essentially, what you want to do is ECL a Zeb. Ideally, on if they Gamma guards, you do 4 damage to something else, maybe a Boba unit, and then mercenary companies just keep coming out and ambushing things and really sort of tempoing the ground. Bright Hope ×2 is in there to sort of force them to go in the ground lane. And again, you've got the 2 copies of Akbar way down on R2, just because with Boba having so much ambush and um, he's sort of less good there. Um, and you can see sort of the rest of the deck is pretty similar. You still got the 4 causes. I think you obviously could think of a list that maybe cuts those. And then the sideboard is all about sort of returning to a normal list against Control, Sabine, Han, and other things like that. So this is sort of your pre-boarded anti-cunning list. That being said, I'm not sold that this list really is going to have a tremendous matchup against cunning anyway. So again, we're sort of up against this Bobby Sapphire roadblock of what he did to the meta. That deck is right now seemingly not oppressive because I don't think enough people have got on it yet. And we'll see when all the eBay orders of Cunnings come back. Cards to try out. So here's a couple that I would suggest. So one is Open Fire for the mirror, and maybe it's enough to shoot a Gamma Guard against Cunning. But I did want to think about just specifically for the mirror, would 2 copies of Open Fire be good enough? Um, just to kill something on, your second turn and sort of have the game go later, especially if you've got something like Mercenary Company in your 60, that maybe you can actually get the game to a longer spot, and then Mercenary Company kind of make it go bigger. I'm not sold that strategy works in the mirror. Um, I still think that sort of understanding the tempo-y layers of it is the best thing. So I looked long and hard to find a card that essentially tapped or bounced a shielded unit that's been plus forward with cunning. And I couldn't find anything. I mean, Bamboozle for 4, Leia for 4 were things I even thought about. But then I had the idea about, well, what if It's one of the things that happens pretty frequently against cunning is a seven fleet defender that's been um, cunning to be seven attack. And I thought about traitorous. Now, obviously, they can bounce it with another card, like a waylay, but if you're able to gain that tempo and steal it, um, it's an idea to try out. And I also thought it was interesting in the mirror, um, where I wonder if this has any value with open fire and traitorous, and you're able to steal tempo. So obviously doesn't trigger for a cause I believe in, but it's an interesting card to try out, sort of that next layer of evolution. Another really wild card to try out, and I should have included it in the slide, was resupply, which I thought, well, if they're going to sort of hit your one of the best answers to cunning is a big Sabine. And if you're able to do that a turn earlier, so essentially like two drop, okay, maybe it dies, resupply, attack with Sabine, and then just the next turn play like a Zeb or something. I mean, maybe that's enough to just really push the tempo, maybe like a medal ceremony. Um, so that was something that I thought had some interest to it a little bit about is there a world where resupply actually, it just works. Your leader's already coming down so early. Would it a turn two leader? Does that give you enough tempo? Um, so food for thought. I don't necessarily think it's the answer, but these were cards that I just sort of had outside the box thinking. Another card to think about is partisan insurgent. Our testing team mate CJ has had some success with that, and actually was able to beat Mike at the 1K with that. But yeah, I think we're in a somewhat rough spot. And then the final slide that I'll share with you guys is switching off of green and going to aggression or cunning. Shout out to Tower number 9. He's been doing well with the aggression list. That's the direction I would go. A lot of people have had the cunning lists and have done well. I don't fully advocate those at this time, but I think this aggression list has some pretty solid answers to some of the things um, that other decks are doing. For instance, you've got a pretty solid control matchup and aggression, being able to kill Gamel guards, push some more damage, and just having access. You see the 3 copies of open fire, so having access to 6 uh, cards that just do 4 damage is really good. Having a 5/4 on 4 for like Bosk is pretty good with Saw that pings them for random, pings them for 2 with Cunning, and really being able to push a little bit. I still believe in Green Sabine, but I do think that at this point, aggression is probably the closest it's been to being equal, and potentially it's even for these events this weekend, it could be better. So I wish I had more of a sort of hopeful outlook on Green Sabine. I still think it's the best aggro deck in a vacuum. Um, so if your meta is a little bit slower to evolve at your local game shop, I would take this margined list that I shared, and just crush your local with it. If your local is heavy, heavy Bobby Sapphire stands, this handsome man right here, um, I would probably look at taking something like the anti-cunning list, but I might veer off of it completely and try a different deck, um, like the aggression Sabine, or maybe even a different leader. And yeah, let me know how you do in your store showdowns this weekend. And for this in the comments and all the Green Sabine channel, keep the ideas coming about how to beat this new menace that has emerged in Cunning Boba Fett. All right, take care, everyone.